What we're going to take a look at now is we're going to look at how we initially get ink into your printer. So I have here the ink cartridges and our cleaning cartridge. You'll notice I have all my whites together, 4 whites. My CMYK, you'll notice they're labeled CMYK, except the top one doesn't actually say K, it's actually a B. K stands for night, which is the standard CMYK designation. But in this case, we happen to have labeled it black just to make it a little easier on everybody. And then we've got our single cartridge of flushing solution. Now, the flushing solution, you're going to have 9 of these. Okay, 8 of them would replace these ink cartridges in the event that we're going to flush the system. This last one always goes in the first position, which is the cleaning position on the machine. So now let's take a look at how we put these into the machine. We're going to simply lift up this cover, and they're labeled here. So I like to lay them out the way that we're going to put them into the machine. So we're going to start with our cleaning solution. Okay. Then it goes with one of the whites, so I'm going to lay the white down next to it. Then black. Then yellow. Next another white. Then another white, then my cyan, then my magenta, and then my last white. And I'm just following the sticker that's on the lid here. And once I get them arranged the way that they're going to go into the machine, they go into the machine where the little opening is facing towards the machine, and there's a little beveled edge. The beveled edge goes down and to the left. To put them in the machine, we simply line them up and we just gently push them in until they lock in place. You'll see the little release levers click up once they're in all the way. You don't want to jam them in, you want to just gently push them in. Now, for your inks, before we put them in, okay, you do want to give them a little agitation. And the way we always agitate the inks, we don't want to shake the ink. We want to turn it up, turn it down, turn it up, turn it down. We want to do this about 8 or 10 times. And that's the way we agitate the ink when we do our daily startup maintenance, as well as when we first put these cartridges into the machine. Now, I have already done that with the rest of these ink cartridges. So now I'm going to just load these in. And another thing that's very important, whenever this cover is open, there's a sensor on this cover. And anytime it's opened, it depressurizes our ink. When we close it, you're going to hear the pressure pump turn on, and it's going to pressurize our ink. Now, it's very possible that you're going to get an error from that pump running too long. If you do get that error, turn the power off, turn it back on again. That may happen several times. You may have to do that repetitively until you get to the point where there's going to be a little bit of ink inside the printer, and then you'll stop getting that error message. So now we're going to go over to the control panel and take a look at what we have to do over there to actually get ink into the lines and into the printhead. Okay, you can see clearly here we have an error 1400. 1400 error means the pressure pump ran for too long a period of time. So you want to make sure that all your cartridges are in, you want to make sure your cover is closed, then you're simply going to power off. When you power off, always wait for the beeps. That means it has powered off properly. Now we can power back on. And it will go through its normal startup procedure, and then we shouldn't have that error. If we do have that error, it's just because there isn't enough pressure and that pump is running for too long without reaching a certain pressure, we would just turn the power off and back on again, and that's how we clear a 1400 series error. You will notice on a new machine I've removed the top cover just so the camera has a clear shot, but we want to look inside here and you'll notice how clear these tubes are. As we fill these with ink, we're going to constantly look at those tubes and see when ink comes all the way into the print head. Once we have ink all the way over in those lines out to the print head itself, we're going to also look at the lines going into the waste bottle, and we're going to look for color to be coming through those lines, indicating that we have fully primed the lines, the dampers, and the print head. The other thing that we want to ensure before we start filling the machine with ink, we do want to make sure that we're going to be able to put waste liquid into the waste container. So you want to make sure that this little pinch valve is all the way up, which is all the way open, so that we have an easy flow of ink going into the waste bottle. Now that we're over at the control panel, we're going to put this machine into a power cleaning in order to fill it with ink. To do so, we're going to press the menu button. We are then going to go down to maintenance. So I'm going to use the down arrow. Once we're on maintenance, I'm going to hit the menu button. Now we're going to use the down arrow and go down to power cleaning. Hit menu, and we're going to press enter to execute it. At this point in time, what we want to do is we want to look at those ink lines and we want to see when they become filled with ink. And we want to ensure that they are filled with ink all the way over to the print head. We're taking a look at these ink lines again. Before they were clear, now you can see they're full of ink. Now, even though they're full of ink, you do want to look at that waste bottle and make sure that you have plenty of colored ink in that waste bottle to indicate that you are fully primed. You're probably going to have to do anywhere from 2 to 6 of these power cleanings to fully charge this with ink. Press and hold the menu button for 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. The machine will go into a head cleaning. Upon the completion of 1 or 2 head cleanings, depending on your machine, you'll get used to how many your machine typically needs to get a good nozzle check. Let's take a look at doing a nozzle check on this machine. A nozzle check is to be performed each and every day, whether you're printing or not printing. Now, we don't necessarily expect you to come in necessarily on the weekends, but every day that you're there, you should be doing a nozzle check to ensure that we have a healthy print head. When we do these nozzle checks, it's always best done on a transparency, which makes seeing both the color and the white ink much easier. We're going to take this transparency and we're going to place it on our platen. We're going to set our height, and we're going to load it in, and then I'll go through the steps on the control panel in order to perform the nozzle check. We now take the transparency and we put it on the front platen, and we want it to hang off over by the side where the control panel is, as well as off the front by a good inch, inch and a quarter off the front edge of the platen itself. We now want to push this whole thing in so that this platen is under the gap sensor. Slide that over a little bit. Now we're going to set our height by holding the bed up button. And now, of course, we're going to load it by pressing the bed load button. Now we'll go to the control panel and perform the nozzle check. To do the actual nozzle check, I'm going to press the menu button. And one thing to take note of is whenever you see the arrow to the right of any of these functions, that means in order to get into the submenu, you press the menu button again. If you ever see a carriage return button, that would be a reason to press the enter button to execute that specific function. So in this case, we want a test print. So I'm going to use the down arrow to go down to test print. Press menu. and we want the nozzle check. Press menu again, and in this case we want manual. You never want to do an automatic because it throws off certain functions on the machine. So we're on manual, we press menu, and now it wants us to print. You'll notice we now have the carriage return symbol. I'm going to press enter to execute the nozzle check. The machine is now going to print a series of lines on the transparency, which we will inspect to make sure there are no breaks in those lines. Now that we've done our one head cleaning and our nozzle check, let's inspect this transparency. So I put a white background down, and if we take a look at this, the colors, the black, the yellow, the cyan, and the magenta look perfect, no breaks in the lines. And if I remove the white background so we have a black background, we can see that our white channels have no breaks. And that right there is an excellent nozzle check. And that's what we want to see each day before we begin printing, or just to start the day to know that we have a healthy print head.